The narrative begins at an unspecified moment in the future, after a contagious and lethal disease has spread throughout the world. The story does not extensively explore the external environment, focusing predominantly on a small family residing in an isolated area of the forest. However, it becomes clear that the virus spreads easily through physical contact and potentially through the air, especially if someone is near an infected person. This illness does not turn individuals into creatures. It merely makes them gravely ill until they can no longer survive. The narrative then introduces an elderly man named Booty, who has already been afflicted by the disease. The signs of his illness are evident in his body, and he has lost the ability to speak. His condition is so critical that survival is impossible. His daughter Sarah remains by his side in tears, declaring her love, aware that this is the last moment they will share. To protect the family, her husband Paul must provide a peaceful end to Booty and bury him. Their 17-year-old son Travis is also devastated. Paul and Travis place Booty in a wheelbarrow and take him into the forest. They wear masks and gloves as the disease spreads easily through physical contact. Paul has already prepared a grave. He asks Travis if he would like to say anything one last time. Travis whispers that he loves his grandfather. Paul then gently lays Booty down in the grave and ignites the area with gasoline to prevent the spread of the disease. Back home, Sarah faces the painful reality of losing her father in this way. During dinner, Sarah and Travis cannot eat, still immersed in grief for Booty. Later, Sarah mentions to Paul that Travis is too young to endure these experiences, but Paul tries to comfort his wife, even though hope seems distant in this world. Travis overhears the conversation, petting the family dog Stanley, and heads to his room. The house is filled with dark paintings and old family photographs, indicating that the land originally belonged to Booty when the situation began to deteriorate. The disease has been present long enough for everyone to live in survival mode. That night, Travis has a disturbing nightmare involving Booty. Sarah wakes him, fearing that someone has broken into the house. The family always sleeps locked behind a red door, their safe haven for the night, and avoids going out after dark. However, now someone is trying to break down the door. Paul waits near the red door, armed. The intruder knocks loudly, trying to force entry. Paul fires but misses. The unknown person immediately drops his weapon and claims that he did not mean to hurt anyone, emphasizing that it was a mistake. Paul forces the intruder to lie down, inspects his hands and eyes for signs of illness, and then knocks him out for safety. The family brings the unconscious man inside. Sarah watches him with a gun, while Paul goes out to check if he is really alone. Upon returning and confirming that the man is alone, Paul and Travis tie the intruder to a tree, cover his head, and seal his mouth with duct tape. They then repair the damage to the red door and change the lock. Later, the man wakes up and makes muffled noises, but Paul ignores him, as the symptoms of the disease manifest only after about a day. Therefore, they keep the intruder tied up outside for the entire day and night. That night, Travis dreams that he goes out and sees the intruder with black, infected eyes. In the morning, Paul revisits the man. The stranger reveals that his name is Will. Paul checks his hands and eyes again, finding no symptoms. He informs Will that he just wants to talk, but warns him by showing his gun. Paul offers water to the intruder and asks him to speak honestly. The man, awake and aware of the situation, cooperates and answers calmly. Will explains that his family lives in an abandoned cabin 15 kilometers away and that their water ran out, which is why he went looking for supplies. He was unaware that the cabin was occupied and did not see any lights, believing it to be uninhabited. In his defense, he claims he had no bad intentions. He was just trying to protect his family. Will recounts that his brother died, and that he, his wife, and his 5-year-old son fled the city when the situation deteriorated. They are unaware of what is happening in larger cities. Paul asks if he encountered anyone during the 15-kilometer journey, and Will replies that he did not. Will then suggests a trade. He has food, 2 goats and chickens, and in return they need water. Paul discusses this proposal with Sarah. Sarah ponders that Will likely saw the smoke from Buddy's burning, which implies that others may have seen it too. Releasing Will could be risky, as he might reveal their location. She concludes that the safest option is to bring Will's family and their animals to the house, as living together could increase everyone's chances of survival. Paul agrees with Sarah's plan. He gathers supplies and a gun and prepares to accompany Will in the search for his family. Before leaving, he warns Sarah and Travis that it may take up to 3 days, and if he does not return, they should not go after him. He encourages Travis to stay strong. Paul warns Will that he will help his family, but if Will lies, he will kill him. Will thanks him for his kindness. Paul frees Will and instructs him to occupy the back of the truck and to lead them. Since Will has stated that he did not find anyone during the 15-kilometer crossing, Paul hopes the route will be safe. They begin to drive, but suddenly gunfire hits the truck, causing a minor accident. Paul arms himself, gets out, and hides under the vehicle. He waits for the shooter to approach and then shoots. Upon emerging, he finds Will grappling with another unarmed man. Paul tells Will to get away and immediately shoots the opponent. Will tries to prevent him, but it is too late. Paul expresses distrust, questioning why Will wanted him to wait, possibly because he knew the man. But Will denies it. He states that he believed they could interrogate the enemy for useful information. Paul, annoyed, confronts Will about his claim that he did not see anyone on the route. Clearly, there were people there. Paul calms down and gives Will a mask and water to clean himself, unsure whether the opponents were healthy or infected. Will starts changing the tire, while Paul drags the bodies away. Evidently, they could have been father and son in a struggle for survival, just like everyone else. Paul incinerates the bodies and continues the journey with Will. The film jumps ahead 3 days. Paul returns with Will's wife, his young son, and the livestock. He brings them home and introduces them to his family. Paul explains the rules of the house to Will's family. No one goes out at night. Everyone sleeps in separate secure rooms. Most of the work is done during the day, and they share 2 meals. Will's wife Kim and son Andrew express gratitude for being there. That night, Will and Kim laugh and talk in their room, and Travis hears from upstairs. The next day, Paul, Will, and Travis chop wood. Will teaches Travis to use the axe, which pleases Paul. Sarah and Kim also become friends, using solar panels to charge batteries. Life seems to find a new rhythm, and the group experiences rare moments of happiness. Travis, growing and unaware of the outside world, has strange dreams, and after meeting Kim, she starts appearing in his dreams. One night when he can't sleep, Travis finds Kim awake in the kitchen. They exchange a few words, but when Travis looks at her too long, she becomes uncomfortable and he leaves embarrassed. The next day, while chopping wood, Paul notices Travis watching Kim. He warns him that trust should only be placed in their own family, even though Will's family seems trustworthy. Suddenly, the dog Stanley barks. Paul and Travis check but see nothing. Then Stanley abruptly runs toward the forest. Travis immediately chases after him, as the dog is a precious reminder of his grandfather. He keeps following Stanley despite Paul's calls for him to return. He stops, frightened, pointing his gun at the trees as if he has seen something. Will arrives, and Travis mentions that Stanley suddenly fell silent. Paul joins them, scolding Travis for risking his life for a dog, and seeing nothing out of the ordinary. They all go back home. Travis remains worried, but Paul reassures him that Stanley knows the forest and will return. That night, Paul comforts Travis again, finding him drawing a strange creature from the forest, but he decides not to comment. He promises that they will look for Stanley in the morning, and Travis thanks him. Later, Paul and Will engage in dialogue, sharing memories of life before the epidemic. Will worked in construction and mechanics, while Paul was a history teacher. Will mentions that he is an only child, confusing Paul since he previously mentioned having a brother. After a brief explanation, Will reveals that the man in question was actually Kim's brother, but he always treated him as a true brother. Paul clearly feels uncomfortable with this information. His demeanor changes, becoming visibly uneasy. Around midnight, Travis gets up again due to insomnia. He finds Andrew lying on the floor in another room, wakes the boy, and takes him back to Will and Kim's room. Travis had already heard noises coming from outside, and when checking, he notices that the door is open. Noticing something strange and fearing the worst, he runs to Paul, warning him that someone has entered. Paul quickly grabs his gun and begins to inspect the house. They are shocked to find Stanley lying down and injured. Paul gathers everyone and informs them that Stanley appears to be infected, so they need to kill him. Travis protests and wants to see the dog, but Paul scolds him again, emphasizing that they cannot take that risk. A gunshot is heard, and Travis realizes that Stanley has been shot. Later, Paul incinerates the body. After the unexpected and sad event, they debate what to do next. Paul declares that in the coming days, only he and Will go out, as they do not know whether the danger comes from an animal or a human. Will asks Travis if he opened the red door to go out, to which Travis replies that he did not. He states that upon arriving, the door was already open. Everyone becomes alarmed, as the red door represents their only protection. Travis suggests that Andrew may have opened it since he found him sleeping on the floor earlier. Paul ponders that Andrew might have been dreaming. Kim asks Andrew if this is true, but he responds that he does not remember. Kim suggests that perhaps Travis was half asleep, given that Andrew is too small to reach the lock. The tension between the families rises, even though Will and Kim are reluctant to accept that their son could have gone out, as if he did, he might have touched Stanley. Before the discussion escalates, Paul intervenes, insisting that both families avoid contact for a while. If Andrew is infected, they all need to take precautions. As such, Will's family will be confined to their room, receiving food for at least a day. Everyone follows the plan. Inside their room, Paul questions Travis again if he touched the red door. Travis denies it but admits to having had contact with Andrew. If Andrew is ill, this puts Travis at risk, as he did not wear gloves or a mask. Paul instructs everyone to wash their hands, and afterward, they all sleep in the same room. That night, Travis has a disturbing dream. He finds himself walking through the forest, armed and hearing Stanley barking. Startled by something, he wakes up, coughing up a dark substance, and sees his grandfather in front of him, with an infected and terrifying body. He wakes from the dream and notices marks on his body, but fortunately, it was just a nightmare. He walks upstairs, hearing Will and Kim talking. Andrew is crying intensely, and Kim tells Will that they need to leave before the others discover Andrew's condition, revealing that Andrew is indeed infected. Travis immediately informs Paul and Sarah. Now they need to act quickly. Sarah argues that they cannot simply allow Will's family to stay, as infected or desperate individuals could threaten their safety. Travis pleads with Paul and Sarah to let Will's family go, claiming they are just trying to protect themselves, and that anyone in their place would do the same. However, Paul and Sarah refuse, which hurts Travis. He adds that if Andrew is sick, he could be infected too, as he touched him. Sarah reassures him, assuring that he will be fine. They go to Will's room. Paul asks about Andrew's well-being, while Will states that he merely had a nightmare. Paul attempts to examine him, but Will does not open the door. When he finally does, Will suddenly points a gun at Paul, disarms him, and forces him inside. Inside the room, Will instructs Paul to remove his mask, while Kim hugs Andrew, who is crying. Will asserts that they only want some supplies and will leave forever. Paul agrees, having no other choice. As they cross the door, Sarah appears behind Will and points her gun at him, demanding that he return Paul's weapon. Will insists that they wish to leave in peace. Sarah, believing him, lowers her weapon, and Paul then lunges at Will, knocks him down, and retrieves his gun. Sarah rushes to follow Kim. Paul ties up Will while Travis hears everything from inside, his anguish increasing. The family is led outside, with the mother and son frightened, and with Paul still unconscious. The latter, weakened and terrified, suddenly attacks Paul, throwing repeated punches to his face. Sarah begs him to stop, but as he continues, she shoots him. Witnessing this, Kim runs, and Paul asks Sarah for the gun to stop her. As she continues running, he fires. The bullet hits Andrew, causing his instant death. Kim collapses, screaming that they took her son's life. She declares that she no longer wishes to live, and Paul shoots her as well. From this point on, the plot takes on an extremely disturbing character. It is clear that this situation was unbearable for Paul and Sarah as well, but they believed they had no other choice. Travis steps outside and witnesses the entire scene. Seeing what his parents have done, he enters a state of profound shock. Hours later, the family tries to live their last moments of life in peace, but they know that this will not be possible. Next, Sarah sits beside Travis, whose body is now covered in wounds. It becomes evident that Sarah's eyes have also turned black, indicating that they are all infected. The scene shows Travis closing his eyes, signaling his death. Finally, in the final moment, Paul and Sarah remain sitting silently at the table, looking at each other, seemingly awaiting their own end. This is the conclusion of this narrative, in which no one finds peace and all experience a tragic fate.